What is up, heathens? Today's installment of my conversation with Matt gets a little bit heated. This is where I kind of really show why I'm getting agitated, I guess. And actually, I look back on this, and as I was editing the video, I don't see this as like a failure exactly. I feel like this was a very much a learning experience, and you're going to see why. Matt does pose a bunch of questions here that I couldn't answer at the time. But you see, the thing is, and the thing that I really want to harp on right now is that you shouldn't look at instances like this and see failure. You should see a chance to learn and grow. There's multiple ways in which I have learned and I have grown since this conversation with Matt. For one thing, I've learned to be a lot more calm in my discussions and speak with a lot more authority, I guess, and just have a level head. Another thing is that after this conversation, I went and I started researching, the topics that he brought up that I couldn't answer. And I would suggest that if there's a situation like that you come into, don't feel as though it's a failure. See it as a learning opportunity where you can better yourself. Most of this conversation is going to center around James, the brother of Christ, the different Jameses that are in the Bible, and whether or not we needed to specify what kind of brother James was in Galatians. I hope you guys enjoy this, and I will see you after this portion.
What's the context of Galatians? What is he, again, we have to take the entire context of the letter. What is Paul talking about in Galatians? His authority is being questioned. He is having issues with people coming to the church he founded and saying you should be circumcised. He disagrees with that. He doesn't think you should be circumcised. So he's saying my authority is more important than these people's authority. And you can get into exactly what he means by that. But yes, this is Galatians 1. For I would have you know, brothers, that the gospel that was preached by me is not man's gospel, which, yes, he had a revelation. Having a revelation does not mean he only had a revelation. Because later on...
Well, no. It seems like you're inserting an assumption here. Right. Now, grilling you on assumptions. You're assuming that it doesn't only mean revelation, while he is directly saying that it's only revelation.
If you read it, no, he doesn't say. He clearly says it's not. If you continue reading, which I was going to, he receives the revelation from Jesus. Then he goes to Jerusalem to talk about this revelation with James and Stephen.
Well, no. Actually, he doesn't go directly to Jerusalem. He spends about 3 years elsewhere. Huh?
Yes, he does. But that's not what I'm saying. I don't care when he goes to Jerusalem. He'll go to Jerusalem 10 years later. But the point is, he says he's going to Jerusalem. And what's he do in Jerusalem? He makes sure his gospel is the same they're preaching. Is that correct?
Well, yeah, but that's because he did not get his gospel from word of mouth. He got it from revelation and scriptures only.
But he already had some theological implications of Jesus, clearly, because he's persecuted the church. It's not like he just had this random vision of Jesus and, okay, now I know everything about Jesus.
But that's exactly what happened. He had a random vision of Jesus, and all of a sudden he had the gospel, and he started preaching it.
But again, you're saying he only had a revelation. And I'm saying that is not possible.
No, actually I'm not. I'm saying he had revelation and scriptures. He had revelation and the scriptures in order to inform him about Jesus. Those are the two things. So I'm just making sure that huh?
Where did he hear about Jesus from?
What? Well, as far as like they're like the idea of a Jesus or Christians or whatnot.
From oral tradition.
No, he didn't.
So he made up Jesus? Do you think he actually had a vision of Jesus? Or do you think he heard people talking about Jesus, thought it was heresy, and decided, I need to squash this movement?
Well, he probably did. He encountered Christians who were defecting from Judaism, and but I mean that doesn't mean no. But you see, that doesn't mean that like these Christians informed him, and like that's how he got. It doesn't matter if like that were the thing. Paul says directly, and this is all that we have. What you're okay. Look, for one thing, Occam's razor is not about the simplest answer. It's about the one that makes the fewest assumptions. And it seems to me like you're making a whole lot more assumptions than I am, because I'm just reading what Paul says. You're assuming things like, oh, he got his oral tradition from elsewhere.
Oh, all right. So we know the Jesus movement existed prior to Paul. We both will agree on that. Paul says he had a revelation. Spent 3 years off doing whatever. We don't know. He doesn't tell us. He goes to Jerusalem, receives this, what some scholars would call a creed. I would disagree, it's creed. A lot of scholars say it's a creed. But he receives this creed about Jesus being buried or Jesus being crucified, buried, and resurrected. He says he receives this creed when he's in Jerusalem. So, again, did Paul know about this creed beforehand? Probably. But the point being, and we're kind of, it doesn't really defeat the point, but you're just saying he says it's all revelation. But if you read the entire letter and understand what he's saying, he clearly also receives a tradition, we would call a tradition, about Jesus being crucified, buried, and rose again when he goes to talk, because he says he received it from them. So, yes, did Paul think he had authority through revelation? Yes. But that doesn't mean there was no earth. He didn't think Jesus lived on earth, or that Jesus only spoke to people with revelation. Does he think Cephas and James only had revelations? He doesn't tell us that. We would have to assume these things. But he doesn't tell us that. What he does tell us is he goes to Jerusalem, talks to these guys. He claims they agree with this version of the gospel. I think he's lying there in some aspects, because I don't think James would approve of people not being circumcised, but that's a whole other topic. So, did Paul think Jesus only appeared to people through revelation? After the resurrection, yes. And Paul came along after the resurrection. But the problem is, Paul goes to Jerusalem and meets the guy who claims to be the brother of Jesus, and meet the guy who claims to be a chief apostle, Cephas. So, I think Paul would take issue with someone claiming to be the brother of Jesus. Paul didn't think Jesus had a brother. And I think to the early followers of Jesus, like Paul, I don't know if Paul was an adoptionist, but I don't think him having family members was an issue to him. I think, again, if you take Romans 1, for example, the beginning of there where he says Jesus was marked out at the resurrection, it just seems more logical that Paul thought he met a guy claiming to be Jesus' brother, and this person is saying, yes, your gospel is the same as mine, go preach to the Jews.
Okay. So now that we're on to Jesus, James and Jesus, or the brother of Jesus. Okay, so this James, who do you think him to be exactly? Like, do you think, like from what I can gather, it's possibly two people. Either it's random James out there, or it's James, one of the pillars of the church. So which one is it?
What do you mean, random James? Just some guy named James?
Well, just a James. In this case, I guess in your view, it would be James, the brother of Christ, but not the James that is the pillar.
I think it was a guy who claimed to be the brother of Jesus. How much certainty we can say he actually was, I don't know, but I'm suspect he was in Jerusalem to begin with. But I think it was a guy who Paul believed was the brother of Jesus.
Okay. Well, in my view, just working off of what I know, in Romans 6:3-10, Paul sets out that baptized Christians are considered brothers in the Lord, brothers and sisters in the Lord, and then in Romans 8:29. He describes Jesus as the firstborn of many brethren. And so it just seems to me like there's this already, if you want to state it, like secret code word in there for what other Christians are, being brothers and sisters in Christ.
Give me one example where he calls someone else brother of the Lord. Give me an example.
Okay. Well, like in.
I'll give you a hint. There is none.
Well, okay. Well, you could let me answer a little bit first.
The point is, there is none. I'm not trying to interrupt you, but
no. Well, actually, that's not true. In Mark, in Mark, they. Huh? Well, no. I understand. In Paul, definitely references other Christians as brothers in the Lord.
When did they call someone else Matthew, brother of Jesus, or Matthew, brother of the Lord? And you also understand, no scholar today, or probably a handful throughout history, interprets this text any other way.
Okay.
No scholar today. People who have studied this text, studied the culture, studied the Greek, who are much more educated than us, who, regardless of whether Jesus existed or not, they're just experts in interpreting the syntax and the language and the culture, would interpret this text. And no New Testament scholar, not even Robert Price, who is a Methodist, interprets this text this way.
Okay, so basically you're throwing Richard Carrier under the bus right now. Because, I mean, Richard Carrier...
Is Richard Carrier an academic scholar?
He's a historian. He's got a PhD in history.
So we can add him to, but the point being, let's add a Carrier to. So there's one. But again, I would not. I have a ton of respect for Carrier.
So just so that we can. Well, just so that we can put it all on the table here, you're using an appeal to authority in order to prove James is the brother of Christ. Got it. Good.
Well, you're completely misunderstanding and misrepresenting me.
No, that's what you literally just said, though, Matt. You just said that all scholars interpret it this way, therefore that is what is correct. That's what you were putting to me.
That's not what I said at all. Let me read.
Okay, what did you say then?
I said fact. Every academic scholar today, holds to the position, who are educated in this, and we are not, that the proper way they would interpret this text, which is a fact, because this is how they would do this, is that the author of this text, James, is the brother of Jesus. Given that, then what evidence do we have to say it's something else? And you're saying, well, because in Romans it says this. But this is the problem with mythicism. Is it's not just trying to answer the question of whether Jesus didn't exist. You have to assume experts in many different fields are wrong. Not just an expert in the story for Jesus. Experts who know the syntax of the language, who don't have a dog in the fight over whether Jesus existed. Like this is a perfect example. People who don't care about the historical Jesus, who study, first century Greek and quoting Greek, would say it wouldn't make most sense that this is what he said. So it's not saying it's right or wrong that James was the brother of Jesus because X amount of experts say that. What I'm saying is, as a fact, experts it's not just a consensus, it's nearly unanimous. And if you want to throw Carrier in there, you're more than welcome to. Carrier, I have a ton of respect for. Like I said, I would consider Carrier a friend. We talk all the time about the historical Jesus. But the point being,
I guarantee you he would tell you you're wrong on this.
Yes, I know he would tell me I'm wrong because he holds a different position. But he is.
But you're saying he's wrong because he disagrees with the scholars.
No, I'm saying he's wrong because his interpretation of that is very interesting. That, again, read the passage. Let's read Galatians. He says, James, brother of the Lord. Stephen, the chief apostle. Then John. He's calling one person, and every letter we have of Paul, the only person he calls by name, the brother of the Lord, is this James character. And you're telling me he just means it generic. When people mean things generic, they use it more than once, which is the particular thing.
Well, no, it's not. That's not it. No, I'm saying that it's not like a generic term that's like always used. It's meant for generic Christians that are baptized. I mean, he sets that. I gave you two examples.
No.
Oh, goddamn, let me fucking finish. Holy fuck. I said in Romans 6:3-10, he establishes that baptized Christians are considered brothers in the Lord. He uses it there. In Romans 8:29, he says that that Jesus is the firstborn and the many of many brethren. I mean, he establishes all of that, and then it continues in other gospels. It continues with Mark because he basically casts aside the whole biological family thing in favor of a kinship among Christians, calling Mary his mother, and then the apostles that he keeps are his brothers. Like, they reference
Mark,
them.
He doesn't have brothers?
Huh?
You're saying in Mark he doesn't have brothers?
No, I'm saying in Mark he does have brothers because they're his apostles.
No, does he have actual physical brothers?
No, Mark doesn't say that he has physical brothers. Yes. He has brothers in Christ.
6, he goes to talk to his brothers, James, Joseph. It lists his brothers in Mark chapter 6. He goes to Nazareth to talk to his brothers, who think he's crazy. He can't perform miracles there. You know, his brothers think he's crazy.
His brothers in Christ.
Where do no, his mother
like
Mary,
his brothers is a kinship, not like. I don't mean
biological brothers.
No,
that's a very interesting reading of Mark. I'm not. So you're telling me in Mark he does not have biological brothers? James and
Does
Joseph,
he have 12 biological brothers that he just so happened to find out there randomly? Because those are the brothers that he's talking about.
No. Mark chapter 6, he goes clearly. He talks. These are, again, is this not the carpenter, the son of Mary, the brother of James and Joseph and Judas and Simon? Are not his sisters here with us?
Okay, those are apostles.
No, James and Joseph and Judas and Simon. These are okay. Let's look at the.
Did you just say Judas was Jesus' brother?
Yes, Jesus had a brother named Judas. It was a common name at the time.
It's kind of weird how his brothers' names though match the apostles.
Because James.
I'm just saying.
Was a common name at the time. You do understand the context of the story here. He went away from there. Let me read the entire story here. His disciples followed him, and on the Sabbath began to teach them the synagogue. Many heard him and were astonished. Where did this man get these things? What is this wisdom given to him? How are such mighty works done in his hand? Is this not the carpenter, the son of Mary, brother of James, Joseph, and Judas, and are not his sisters here with us? And they took offense at him, and he could do no mighty work there. So again, let me go back to also. I think it's in Mark 4, also where his brothers challenge his authority. So you're saying someone should interpret that as, where is he? The brothers here. Yep, right here. And his mother and his brothers came, standing outside. They sent and called to him. And the crowd sitting around him said, "Your mother and your brothers are outside seeking you." And he answered, "Who are my mother and who are my brothers?" Looking at those around him, he said, "Here are my mother, here are my brothers." So clearly, Jesus is saying these people aren't my mother and brothers because they're not followers of me. It's kind of the context here. Jesus, I mean, again, I don't understand any other way to interpret Mark 6 or Mark 3 than Jesus had brothers in his hometown named James, Joseph, Simon, and Judas. Yes, they happen to have common names. Jesus was a common name at the time. How else would you interpret that? His brothers are calling to him, and he says, "I'm not going out there. Who are my brothers? You people here," talking to his disciples. So are his disciples outside the house and inside the house at the same time? It's a very interesting.
So now Jesus not only has one brother named James, but also pretty much a duplicate set of his disciples as brothers, all named the exact same. Because because you're just assuming all this.
I'm reading the text. The text says he had a brother named James, Joseph, Simon, and Judas. So you do understand how common of the name James was during the first century.
I don't think that that's exactly relevant right now as far as all this goes.
You seem to find it unique that there were two James in this story, correct? Is the issue you're taking?
No, I don't think that it's unique that there were two James. I was saying I was boiling it down because if you thought that the James that he met in Jerusalem was the pillar, then I was going to say that that no, that James, his brother is the other pillar, John. They were brothers.
I don't think James, son of Zebedee, existed. If that's where you're getting.
I don't. No, I wasn't. I wasn't going there. I was thinking
the brother of
General
John,
Christian or the pillar is the two ways I was thinking it was going.
All seems to think James and the pillar are the same character. It seems.
Okay. Well, still, I mean, the fact is that you want to act like I'm doing I'm making more assumptions when it feels like you're the one that's making more assumptions because. I mean, you're assuming that he had a duplicate set of brothers that had all the exact same names as his disciples.
No,
that feels like what you were saying.
Does he have a disciple named Joseph?
Well, no. Was that one? Was that one of the brothers?
Yes, that was one of the brothers. Does he have a disciple named Simon?
There were multiple Simons that were. In there with the look, I believe there was a Simon that was an apostle.
Simon Peter, but he never.
Oh, really Simon Peter, but fuck that guy.
So, is there a disciple named Joseph? And does it seem like the text, if you honestly read the text, step outside of this whole Jesus had no brother, approach it honestly as a skeptic. If you just read this text, you would draw from it draw from it that there are two separate people in this scene. His brothers, who are outside of this house, and his disciples inside of this house. The text says that. To say they're the same people, just to make it seem like Jesus doesn't have any brothers, is not an intellectually honest way to read this text.
That only causes problems for the Catholic religion.
No,
because the Catholic religion believes in a perpetual Virgin Mary. How else could he have brothers? Did she pop out 2 or 12 more Jesuses?
That's a theological question. I don't know. That's within.
That's a theological. It's funny that now it's a theological question because Catholicism was the first version of Christianity.
I'm sorry? I didn't hear what you said. I'm sorry.
Catholicism was the first version of Christianity.
I would highly disagree with that.
You would? Okay, well, what version of Christianity existed before Catholicism?
Well, it depends how you define the Catholicism. It seems like the perpetual virginity, Jesus being equal to God or God himself, that didn't come along until hundreds of years later. I think it was. The earliest form of Christianity was probably adoption, but I don't think the virgin birth caught on for a while. Paul doesn't seem to care about the virgin birth. Mark obviously doesn't care. John doesn't care about the virgin birth. I think it was a sect of Christianity that took a little while to take off, just because we don't have any. No one seems to mention it as being important for a little while besides Matthew and Luke. But
okay, well,
if you try to define Catholicism, but I think the general dogma and theology of Catholicism did not catch on for 200 years.
Okay.
Well, you don't have any external evidence. I mean, John doesn't mention a virgin birth, and John has a very high Christology. Paul doesn't mention this whole concept of perpetual virginity just wasn't important to the first Christians because they don't mention it. There's no evidence for it. I mean,
well, it didn't become. Well, the whole virgin birth didn't become important until they started working paganism into the religion. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed that particular section of this interview or discussion. And, the main takeaways I feel are, growing as a person, learning, where you're weakest and learning how to argue against that or learning the answers for those things so that you can be better in general. And that's what I did right after this. I looked up, the Mark 6:3, and honestly, from what I've read on several commentaries and everything like that, they suggest that it's actually cousins of Jesus rather than brothers or sisters. So, I mean, that doesn't work for either my case or Matt's case here. But I still assert that, Matt is pretty much just using an argument from authority here to suggest that, the brother of James, the brother of the Lord, is only a biological brother and is in no way can be, conceived to be just a general Christian. I also will say that Paul's theology wouldn't have changed, from Galatians to Romans. It's regular throughout those things that he repeats things that they should know. And, being brothers and sisters in Christ would be part of Paul's theology. And so that would have been known to the people that he was writing to in Galatia or whatever. So, those are my takeaways from rewatching this particular part of it. If you will, let me know down below what you thought of it, what you thought, about this particular segment. What was your favorite argument or statement that was brought up? And I guess I'll see you heathens later. Don't forget to stand up and use your voice.